ülkemizin coğrafyasıyla bağlantılı olan kaynakları da bu gözle nasıl değerlendirebiliriz diye düşünmek istiyoruz. Bu konuda özellikle tabii ki Hitit metinleri eski Anadolu'dan geldiği için önemli oluyor ve bu konuda özellikle dijital alanda araştırma yapan hocalarımızdan değerli sunumlar alacağız. İlk konuşmacı olarak Profesör Doktor Özlem Sirgavaz ve Doçent Doktor Gülgüney Masalcı Şahin'den Hititçe tabletlerin dijitalleşme süreci, yapay zeka ile yeni filolojik yaklaşımlar. Hocam buyurun.
Teşekkür ederim Sayın Moderatör. Evet. Hemen bir acaba. Galiba sesim de geliyor aslında ama değil mi?
O bir mikrofon çalışmıyor mu şu anda?
Çalışıyor.
Çalışıyor mu? Tamam.
Gayet iyi. Şimdi hemen şöyle bir düzenimi aldıktan sonra bir taraftan zoom'umu açayım. Ekran paylaşılmış mı acaba şu an? Şu an paylaşılmış.
Tamam.
Evet, Sayın Moderatör, değerli misafirler, sevgili öğrenciler. Ben öncelikle bu süreklilik ve dönüşümlülük çok özel bir sempozyum gerçekten. Sevgili meslektaşım Profesör Doktor Selim Adalı'nın şahsında tüm düzenleme ekibine ve düzenleme kuruluna çok teşekkür ediyorum. Bizleri buraya davet ettikleri için. Bugün dijitalleşme üzerine genel birkaç maddeden sonra bizim de Hititçe tabletler üzerine yürüttüğümüz bir projeden bahsedeceğim sizlere. Hemen şuradan slide konumuna alayım. Evet, sunumumun başlığını Selim Hocam söyledi. Hititçe tabletlerin dijitalleşme süreci, yapay zeka ile yeni filolojik yaklaşımlar. Tabii şöyle söylemek lazım. Aslında dijitalleşme, yapay zeka teknolojilerindeki hızlı gelişmeler yalnızca modern diller üzerinde değil, ölü dillerin araştırılmasına da önemli bir dönüm noktası. Bu yeni yöntemler geleneksel filolojik çalışmaları tamamlayıcı araçlar olarak kullanılmakta ve bu metinlerin daha geniş kitlelere aslında ulaştırılmasına ve daha hızlı çözümlenmesine ve korunmasına da olanak sağlamaktadır. Dijitalleşme bilgilerin, hizmet ve süreçlerin sayısal teknolojiler vasıtasıyla üretilmesi, işlenip saklanması ve iletilmesi olarak da aslında ifade edilebilir. Yapay zeka teknolojisinden çok önce bilgisayarların ilk kez işte pek çok farklı alanda erken dijitalleşme çalışmaları başlattıklarını biz biliyoruz zaten. Hatta belki de işte yazma materyallerinin mikrofilm, film, fotoğraf tarama vesaire biçimlerinin aktarımları ta 20. yüzyılların ortalarına kadar gitmekte. Fakat makinelerin okuyabilirliği, belki de bu işte bizim OCR gibi teknolojilerin yaygın olarak kullanılmaya başlanması da 1980'lerden itibaren kendini gösteriyor. Tabii son yıllarda görüntü işleme teknolojilerindeki hızlı ilerlemeler, karakter tanıma ve nesne tespiti gibi alanlarda da yapay zeka tabanlı uygulamaların gelişimini hızlandırmış. Bu teknolojik yenilikler özellikle Çivi yazısı gibi önemli tarihsel değere sahip karmaşık yazıların otomatik olarak çözümlenmesine ve buna yönelik de yeni fırsatlar sunmasına olanak tanıyor. Şimdi dünya genelindeki müzelere baktığımızda farklı dillerde binlerce çivi yazı tabletin varlığı bu metinleri de çevrim içi ortama aktarmayı tabii ki zorunlu kılmış artık. Ve bunların dijitale taşınmasında da tabii çok katmanlı bir koruma, erişim ve araştırma platformu oluşturmak da amaçlanmış. Ve bu projelere baktığımızda aslında çeşitli adımlar izlenmiş. Bunlardan bir tanesi burada da gördüğünüz üzere belgeleme ve görüntüleme teknikleri. Yüksek çözünürlüklü fotoğrafların her yönüyle çekilmiş fotoğrafları aslında. Yani ön, arka, yan kenarlarının British Museum'daki bir tabletin burada örnek olarak gösterdim sizlere. Tabii sadece aslında fotoğraflama değil, ilerleyen süreçte sıklıkla tercih edilen yöntemlerden bir diğer görüntüleme yöntemi belki de 3 boyutlu modelleme olmuş ki tabletlerin 3 boyutlu tarama cihazları, örneğin lazer tarayıcılar gibi bunların sanal ortamlarda döndürülebilir ve ışık kaynağı değiştirilebilir 3D modelleri oluşturulmuş. Bunlar da tabii ki artık son zamanlarda neredeyse bütün filologların kullandığı bir model haline geldi. Şimdi bu konuda tabii farklı proje örnekleri var ve müzelerin oluşturduğu farklı modellemeler de bilinmekte. Dediğim gibi British Museum'da var. Mesela burada 3D olarak işte çivi yazılı tablet üzerinde farklı bir model oluşturmuş uzmanlar. Evet, şimdi bu belge ve görüntüleme tekniklerinden ilki aslında dönüşümlü görüntüleme dediğimiz bir uygulama. Burada nesnenin yüzey detaylarının farklı açılardan aydınlatılarak elde edilen görüntü verilerinden ortaya çıkarılan bir görüntüleme tekniği oluşturulmaya çalışılmış. İkinci yönteme baktığımızda transliterasyon ve metin oluşturma. Metnin dijital veri tabanına girilmesi ve akademik araştırma için gerekli dil bilimsel özelliklerinin eklenmesi. Bunu artık bizler de uygulamaya başladık. Özellikle bu yönde çalışmalarımızı da devam ettiriyoruz. Üçüncü yöntem üst veri oluşturulması. Kataloglama ile tabletin fiziksel özelliklerine, kökenine, bulunduğu müzeye, envanter numarasına ve tarihine ilişkin tüm bilgilerin kaydedilmesi söz konusu. Başka bir yöntem de yine dijital erişim ve araç geliştirme. Dijital erişim ve araç geliştirmede yani bu yöntem üzerinde veri tabanı ve bir arayüz oluşturuluyor. Ve burada da gördüğünüz üzere arama motorları sayesinde belki de dijital kütüphane tekniğinin de burada geliştirildiğini görüyoruz. İlerleyen süreçte ise doğal dil işleme ve yapay zeka ile işaretleri otomatik olarak tanımlama ve metinleri tercüme etme, yani makine çevirisi modelleri geliştirme çalışmaları da ve transliterasyonları tamamlama gibi özellikler de eklenmeye başlamış. Bu tabloda da aslında bu gelişimin sürecine dair bir takım projelerden örnekler görüyorsunuz. Bakın 1990'lardan itibaren bunların başlatıldığını ve günümüze kadar hız kesmeden devam ettiğini de söyleyebiliriz. Evet, peki yapay zeka nedir? Yapay zeka, bu soruyu kısaca şu şekilde cevaplayabiliriz. 1950'de yayımlanan ve bilgisayar bilimlerinin de atası sayılan Alan Turing'in makalesine göre makineler düşünebilir mi sorusundan yola çıkarak aslında yapay zeka çalışmalarının ilk temel taşı olarak görülüyor. Ve bu sorudan yola çıkarak gelişen yapay zekayı tanımlayacak olduğumuzda da insan zekası gerektirecek biçimde problem çözmeyi mümkün kılmak için bilgisayar bilimiyle sağlam veri kümelerini birleştiren bir alan olduğunu görüyoruz. İnsan zekasının altını çizmek istiyorum. Evet, şimdi yapay zekayı aslında iki alt ana katmana ayırıyoruz. Makine öğrenimi ve derin öğrenimi. İki alt alan var. Biz daha çok derin öğrenmeyi kendi projemizde kullandığımız için burada derin öğrenme nedir? Onu da sizinle paylaşmak istedim. Beynimizi simüle ederek sistemlerin nesneleri tanımlamasına, öğrenmesine ve karmaşık görevleri insan müdahalesi olmadan artan bir doğrulukla gerçekleşmesine yardımcı olur derin öğrenme yöntemi. Yapay zekanın artık tabii bilimin her alanında kullanılan, dahası ihtiyaç duyulan bir teknoloji olması bu alanla diğer bütün bilim dallarının da yani disiplinler arası bir işbirliği içinde olma zorunluluğunu da doğurmuştur. Ve özellikle dil bilimi çalışmalarına yapay zeka tabanlı birçok program ile çeviri ve metin tamamlama işlemi yüksek başarı oranlarıyla günümüzde yapılmaktadır. Burada gördüğünüz Sümerce ve Akatça özellikle Mezopotamya dillerinde daha çok görüyoruz. Tel Aviv Üniversitesi'nde Guy Gutierrez isimli bir araştırmacının yüksek lisans tezi bir test projesiyle başlıyor bu proje aslında. Ve Oxford Üniversitesi'nin Nexus dergisinde Akatça'dan İngilizce'ye nöral makine çevirisini anlatan bir araştırma makalesi ilk olarak yayınlanıyor ve Ariel ve Tel Aviv üniversitelerinde günümüzde de hala yapay zeka ile ilgili hem Akatça tabletler hem de diğer Mezopotamya dillerine yönelik çalışmalar devam ediyor. Burada da Chicago Üniversitesi'nde sürdürülen bir proje aslında 1990'lardan bu yana başta 3D çizim konusunda ve okuma konusunda bilişim teknolojilerinden faydalanan araştırmacılar tablet okumada %80, bu çok önemli bir gerçekten oran, %80 başarı elde ediyorlar. Fakat fiiller ve kalıplar dışında yorum gerektiren kelime ve ifadelerde başarı oranının düştüğüne işaret ediyorlar. Ve burada gördüğünüzde elamca bir tabletin etiketlenmiş hali. Evet, yine günümüzde yapay zekaya çivi yazısı öğretilmesi dışında çivi yazılı tabletlerin 3D modelleme ve fotometrik ölçüm çalışmaları yapılarak da arşivleme ve doğruluk oranı yüksek tablet okumayı mümkün kılan sistem ve teknolojilerden de faydalanılmakta. Burada da yine çok uluslu bir proje. Burada sanal çivi yazısı tablet rekonstrüksiyonu adlı bir projenin Uğur kentinde ortaya çıkarılan ve şu anda British Museum'da sergilenen çivi yazılı tabletlerin 3D taramaları, bu tabletlerin 3D arşivlerinin oluşturulması, eksik ya da kırık tabletlerin tamamlanması ve daha rahat okunması ve aynı zamanda joinlerinin yapılmasına yönelik de bir sistem geliştirdiklerini görüyoruz. Yine Johannes Gutenberg ve Mainz Üniversiteleri tarafından yürütülen Kai Christian Brown ve Doris Brechel'ın proje yürütücüsü olduğu çivi yazılı belgelerin 3D taraması ve etiketlenmesi projesi kapsamında da burada yine tabletlerin 3D çalışmalarını görüyorsunuz. Burada şu an sizin gördüğünüz sol taraftaki 2D modeli, diğeri 3D modeli. Öyle mi? Biraz daha o zaman hızlandırıyorum. Şimdi tabii dijital dokümantasyona dair başka önemli çalışmalar da var. Burada aslında yine biraz daha bu fotogrametrik mikro ölçülmesi, tabletlerin mikro ölçülmesine yönelik çalışmaları görüyorsunuz. Gent Üniversitesi'nde yürütülen bir çalışma. Bunu da hemen hızlıca geçtim. Bunun dışında da belki burada özellikle belirtmem gereken, çünkü benden sonraki konuşmacılardan birinin Gerrit Müller tarafından yürütülen bir proje Ankara'da, Boğazkale'de, Berlin'de, Çorum'da, İstanbul'da çok farklı şehirlerdeki müzelerde 3D taramalar üzerine gerçekleştirdiği bir proje ve çok değerli çıktıları var. Bizlerin de yararlandığı çıktılar. O yüzden burada onu da vermek istedim. Ve yine birkaç farklı yerde, mesela burada makine çevirisi üzerine bir çalışma yapılmış. Yine Ludwig Maximilian Üniversitesi'nde bir çalışma, yapay zeka yönelik bir çalışma. Cornell Üniversitesi'nde Elamca çalışma ve kapalı zarfların içindeki tabletleri görüntülemeye yönelik bir çalışma örneğini görüyorsunuz. Peki bizler neler yaptık? Bizler de Kültür ve Turizm Bakanlığı destekli olarak Ankara Üniversitesi işbirliğinde bir projeye başladık. Bu projede tabii ilk olarak yüksek çözünürlüklü olarak fotoğrafladık. Tabletleri dijital bir arşivini oluşturduk ve o dijital arşivi oluşturduktan sonra yani etiketleme sistemini geliştirdik ve hemen burada bakın tabletlerin etiketlemelerini yaptık, veri setlerini oluşturduk. Bunları yaparken yapay zeka algoritmalarından ResNet 50 mimarisini kullandık. Fakat şu an bu ilk aşamasıydı. Şu an 9 farklı model kullanıyoruz. Çözümlenen tabletlerin analizleri yapay zeka tarafından yapıldıktan sonra bize bazı sonuçlar verdi. Mesela çözümlenen her tablette bir hecenin kullanım sayısı gibi, tablette bulunan satır sayısı gibi, tabletin yapay zeka tarafından okunma süresi gibi bazı bilgiler sundu bize. İlk etapta 170 civarında bir doğruluk elde ettiysek de bu gün geçtikçe %90 oranlarına kadar arttı. İkinci aşama benim yürütücülüğümde şu an gerçekleşiyor ve burada da yayınlanmış Hititçe tabletlerin yüksek çözünürlüklü fotoğraflarını kullandık. Heceler tek tek kesildi ve küçük görsellere dönüştürüldü. Her görsele temsil ettiği hece etiketi verildi ve bazı adımlarla etiketlemeden sonraki adımlarla mesela ön işleme dediğimiz görsellerin kontrast, ışık, hizalama açısından düzeltilmesi ve veri dengesizliği için görsel çoğaltma yapılması sistemini gerçekleştirdik. Şu anki durumumuz, projedeki şu anki durumumuz sınıflandırma. Yani bilgisayarın heceleri tanımayı öğrenmesi durumu. Evet, burada etiketleme örnekleri görüyorsunuz. Özellikle şu renkli olan ilk aşamada gerçekleştirdiğimiz etiketleme örneğiydi. Bu etiketleme örneği ikinci aşamadaki yeni modelimiz. Veri setlerinden örnekler görüyorsunuz. Evet, şu ana kadar 9 farklı model test ettik. Modeller derinlik, parametre sayısı ve görsel detay yakalama kapasitesi bakımından farklılık gösteriyor. Ve birçok tabii ki bununla ilgili çalışma yayınladık. Hem popüler olarak projemizin tanıtılması açısından hem de yine bilimsel yayınlarımızı yapmaya devam ediyoruz. Bazı zorluklarla karşılaştık. Nedir bunlar? Hitit metinlerinde kullanılan birden fazla dil var. Bu aynı zamanda işte Sümerce, Akatça, Hattice, Hurice, Luvice gibi aynı işaretler, bakın burada gördüğünüz gibi birden farklı hece sayısını. Mesela diyelim ki kal işareti aynı zamanda kala, kalaklanma işaretlerine de karşılık geliyor. Bu tarz problemlerle karşılaştık. Hatalı tanıma yapabildi, yanlış sınıflandırma yapabildi. Belki de bizim verdiğimiz yanlış bilgileri yapay zeka yanlış olarak algıladı. Metinsel yorum farkları var, standartlaşma sorunları var, telif ve mülkiyet gibi bazı problemlerle karşılaştık. Donanım ve maliyet kısıtlaması, çünkü uzman ekip ve zaman her zaman yaratıyoruz biz bilim insanları ama bütçe konusunda maalesef ki zorlanıyoruz. Ve sonrasında tabii etik ve gelecek perspektifleri açısından da dedik ki evet, biz gerçekten projenin etik olabilmesi için elimizden geleni yaptık ama hem sürdürülebilirliği çok önemli, erişim ve paylaşım, yani kimlerle paylaşılacak, nasıl erişim sağlayacaklar, bu konuda henüz çalışmalarımız sürüyor. Yapay zeka ve güvenilirlik, artık yapay zekaya evet güveniyoruz ama kontrol etmek de durumundayız aynı zamanda ve gelecek için fırsatlar, yani yeni kuşak araştırmacılar için farklı beceriler, filoloji yanında dijital yöntemlere aşinalık gibi konularda da belki biraz daha yol kat etmemiz gerekecek. Sabrınız ve ilginiz için çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Hocam şimdi format olarak sunumdan sonra 5 dakika soru cevap gibi düşündük o şekilde. İlk önce tabii ki katılımcılardan sorusu olan varsa alabiliriz. Buyurun.
Evet. Şöyle, evet, işaretleri. Yani aslında mesela ha, at, tu, şa yazacağız. Ha hecesini, işte at hecesini, şa hecesini, hepsini tek tek etiketliyoruz ve öğretiyoruz. Rica ederim.
Hocam müsaadenizle o zaman ben bir soru sormak istiyorum. Biraz da aslında şeyden ben merak ediyorum. Vaktinde bir çalışma yapmıştım. TOB Üniversitesi'nden bilgisayar mühendisi arkadaşlar vardı. Bu yüz tanıma teknolojisini biraz kullanmaya gayret etmiş. Yani biraz daha deneysel bir şeydi. Çalıştığımızda bu şeydi, Nabonid Kroniği diye bir şeydi. Orada Pers kralı 2. Kuraş'ın seferini anlatan bir kısım var orada. Şimdi oradaki işaret bir yarı kırık gibiydi. Mesela orada bir ya suya benziyor ya lu'ya benziyor diye tartışmalar vardı. Hani onunla ilgili bir şey yaptık mı? Ben hani bu şimdi etiketleri seçiyor ya. Mesela böyle kırık işaretler olsun, birbirine yakın benzeyen işaretler, ne gibi bir deneyiminiz oldu?
Aslında şöyle, biz ne kadar çok veri girersek hocam, o kadar çok bize farklı istatistiksel sonuçlar verebiliyor. Mesela an hecesini ne kadar farklı duktuslarda, farklı şekillerde girersek, an hecesi kırık da olsa onu bize tamamlar. Ama işte o heceyi girme sayımızla alakalı. Şimdi şöyle, birinci aşamada sadece 500 tane tablet üzerine biz yapay zeka okuması yapabilmiştik. Yani 500 tane tabletin etiketlemesini yapay zekaya verebilmiştik. Şimdi bu projede de 500 tane tablet ama şu an projenin gidişatına göre bir 200 tablet falan anca etiketleme yapabildik, girebildik. Şu andahi şunu fark ediyoruz. Öncekilerle birlikte bu 700 tablet oldu ve yapay zekanın algılama hızı daha arttı. O yüzden de yani demek ki ne kadar çok veri girip ne kadar çok farklı örnek görürse bize o kadar çok fayda sağlayacak.
Teşekkür ederim.
Rica ederim hocam.
Sorusu olan var mı?
Şöyle doğrudan etiketleme yönteminden sonra yapay zekaya gönderiyoruz. Yani biz doğrudan tableti yapay zekaya sunmuyoruz. Bunun belirli aşamaları var. İlk etapta bunu fotoğraflıyoruz. Yüksek çözünürlükte olması çok önemli. Şimdi artık 3D olarak da yapmaya başlıyoruz. Daha sonrasında onu tek tek etiketleyip hazır hale getiriyoruz. Veri setlerini oluşturuyoruz. Veri setlerini oluşturduktan sonra yapay zeka öğretimine tabi tutuyoruz. Anladım. 500 tane tableti ilk öğrettik. Bu 500 tablet içinde aynı konuları içeren benzer bir tane tableti hiçbir şekilde daha önce tanıtmadığımız bir tableti koyduğumuzda %76 başarı elde ettik.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Zaman kullanımı açısından ileride hocamıza daha da soru sorabiliriz. Sonrası. Şimdi Profesör Doktor Daniel Schöner, Hittitology Portal Minds, The Digital Infrastructure for Hittite Studies. Buyurun hocam. Is everything set or? Let's see.
That seems to work. Hello, everyone. I will be speaking in English. Thank you, Selim, for the kind invitation. I'm very happy to very briefly introduce you to what we call HPM, the Hittitologie Portal Minds, which is the digital infrastructure for Hittite studies worldwide. It is this digital infrastructure is of key importance for one of the most important archaeological sites in Turkey, which you know well, Boğazköy, Hattusha, the Hittite capital, especially important in the Bronze Age. And Hittite sites are, of course, numerous in central Anatolia and beyond, but Hattusha still holds a special place because it is the most prolific site with regard to cuneiform finds at the moment. 31,347 fragments have been recovered in various places in Boğazköy, Hattusha, and work has been going on since 1906, also on the publication of the tablets. And here you see the distribution in time of the finds of the tablets, which started in 1905 and continue to this year, actually. And the situation is that we do not find full, well-preserved tablets, but usually small fragments, and these small fragments found over more than 100 years now have to be sorted, have to be researchable, they have to be joined together to reconstruct bigger texts, and all this is work that has been going on for now also more than a century and continues to this day. I skipped this for reasons of time, and basically our publication strategy has always remained the same. We publish as soon as possible the small fragments on their own in a technical drawing. We catalog the tablets in transliteration in a database, which was done on file cards, of course, for many, many years, and created a file card archive in the Mainz Academy with more than 3 million file cards. And this was the way we went about things for a long time. And as soon as digital methods became available, it was very clear that this is the kind of task that computers can help us with enormously. And this is one of the reasons why Hittitology went digital at a relatively early stage in the humanities, already in the year 2000, 2001. So we have a 25-year jubilee to celebrate this year with the Hittitologie Portal Minds, which was designed as an open access portal for Hittite studies, where we could host catalogs, media databases, photographs, 3D models, where we could host text editions, where we could host various databases, bibliographies, onomastics, etc. It should be open access, available to everyone, and everybody should be able to contribute. That was the philosophy of this site from the start, when Gernot Wilhelm and Gerfried Müller, who will speak after me, founded it. And we continue to work with this philosophy to this day. The most important element that every Hittitologist knows is the main catalog backbone that is published on HPM, the so-called concordance. We have a complete record of all the found fragments. You have metadata for the tablets, you can access bibliographical data, and the concordance gives you also access to media, photographs, 3D models partly, and nowadays also transliterations of the texts, drawings of the joins of the fragments, how they join, etc., etc. So this is a key access to all cuneiform fragments from Hittite sites, whichever language they may be written in. The bibliographies, the most important one is the Hethitische Bibliographie, which is supplemented by a systematic catalog called Systematik zur Hittitischen Bibliographie, where you can search for certain topics and find literature in it, but also you can just search for, well, publications in Hittitology and related fields, which are easily available there. Onomastic databases, there's a complete database for place names in Hittite texts created by Adam Krishen. There is also a database on personal names, which needs to be updated. There's no database yet for divine names, so there's plenty of prospect for younger colleagues to join in and create new tools and make that part of their research. Text editions are growing. For several genres. There are complete text editions online, prayers, myths, magical rituals, cult inventories, administrative texts, etc. We are working on a big edition of the largest corpus of Hittite texts, the so-called festival rituals, so instructions for the performance of the Hittite cult. And you can see here an example of such a text edition, which is accompanied by a translation in whichever language you work. On the Hittitologie portal, you can publish in any language that you prefer, and includes, of course, introductory matters and commentary and critical notes. One important part of Hittitology is that it's a living field. Every year new fragments are found. As most of you know, this year 56 fragments from Kayalupana, 1,400 fragments from Boazköy. So every year things have to be integrated into our database, have to be made available, and we have two strategies for this at the moment. For the Boazköy finds, we have a growing book which is online, the latest KBO volume, and in each March of every year you can find the new fragments there from the last campaign. At the moment it ends in 24, but next March you will have the 25 fragments. And the other tool that has become very important to us and is relatively new still is called TLH-DIG, or Thesaurus Linguarum Heterorum Digitalis, which is a very simple thing. It's basically a database of all Hittite fragments and texts in transliteration, without commentary, without translation, just a database for Hittitologists to researchers, basically replacing the big file card archive that we have in Mainz, in the Mainz Academy. You see here Heinrich Otten, who led this institution for a long time, and on whose work we still rely today, because many of the transliterations that you now find digital have been prepared for the first time by Heinrich Otten, Hans Gustav Güterbock, and other scholars of that generation. TLH-DIG became very handy this year because in Boazköy we usually find about 40 fragments, and that is easy to digest. This year, the director of the Boazköy Museum went through his archives and depots, and he found 1,374 fragments that had been forgotten. So we had to deal with more than 1,000 fragments in one campaign. And for this, TLHDIG was very useful because I could quickly research the transliterations and I could type in the transliterations of these fragments into the database immediately and research the transliterations, match it with other tablets, and so tiny fragments like the one that you see here in the bottom left could then be relatively quickly joined to bigger tablets, in this case of the Telepinu Edict, EBO 1033. Doesn't add much to our knowledge, but it's very nice that these small fragments can find a new home, and this wouldn't be possible without digital methods. Artificial intelligence is not involved in this, but it's just a very simple database. And it's open access, and you can use it. You go on the website, you can browse it, you can find any transliteration that is online. A new version will come in December, which will then be complete. I'm not sure how many fragments we have at the moment, about 25,000. In December, we will be close to 30,000, so up to date. No, not quite there. I'm forgetting the Bo fragments. So I don't know where we will be exactly, but anything published will be online in December. What is important, you can research it, you can search for transliteration, you can search the cuneiform text, you can filter these research according to genre or date, etc. And just use it. Also try to use the search operators, and you will find it very useful in your work with Hittite texts. You get to these transliterations. Of course, it's not designed for the general public, it's designed for students and researchers. And here you see I'm not sure you can see it, but this is an Akkadian text. It's the Akkadian version of the Telepinu Edict. So independent of the language, you will find the text there. Whether it's Hattic or Hurrian or Kalashmaic or Hittite, it is in TLHDIG, therefore linguarum, the languages. In the background, we have developed an editor in which these texts can be relatively easily edited, but you don't have to deal with this editor because there's a very simple input interface. So if you're one of those who edit new Hittite texts, or you find a text that is missing on TLHDIG, you can register, it's open access, you can type in your transliteration, you can submit it in the pipeline, and then I will get an email, and I have to check whether this is really a Hittite text and not something fake, and then it will be integrated into the database. And my hope is that this will not just be a digital tool of the Mainz Academy in the future, but will become a tool that connects us all Hittitologists, that everyone who is working on new texts or finds mistakes in TLHD can go in and submit their contribution to this database, which will be is already used by everyone I know from our hits. Every Hittitologist uses it all the time. Not everybody is yet contributing to it, but it is open, and I think as a small field we have to work in a collaborative way, and I hope that in future years the user number will remain high and the contributor number will increase, so that we all cooperate with this community digital tool. We will try in the coming months, this is my last sentence, Selim, to apply a language model that was developed by the University of Würzburg for small corpus languages to TLHDIG, and we'll see whether the machine can learn Hittite in a way that is useful to us Hittitologists. We'll see. ChatGPT has learned a lot of Hittite in recent years by using our websites, I noticed. So let's see what we can do in a more useful way to the scholarly community. Thank you for your patience.
Hocamıza çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Öncelikle sorusu olan var mı? So I would like to first make an observation, if it's okay, and then I'll ask you a question about how to relate digital tools with more print publications. So, of course, maybe these are things we already discussed in multiple times, but I think it's also important for students to know, and for people people who plan future academic research. So what happened with this, especially the digital infrastructure, the idea is not just for one institute, but to somehow engage everybody doing the research and to try to organically grow both the digital tools and the digital database. So this is, I think, an important step in trying to further the field, in a given philological field. Also, I think this applies to other fields where somehow the tools, we see, for example, in the portal, various tools developed by other young scholars, new PhDs, and they also, as you say, down the pipeline, they can propose certain things if they look through various photographs, maybe museum studies. So I think this is something to consider, how to engage the entire scientific community while preparing a database, how to receive feedback. These are, I think, very important things we can learn. That's what I felt when I listened to your talk. Question, then I think we'll go to our next speaker. So we have now these digital tools, they're becoming open access. How do you relate this to publication projects, for example, physical books? How has your institution planned on this?
Yeah, I think we need to differentiate between working tools that we use every day and that change every day because they get better and you make corrections. For this, the digital space is ideal. And then, on the other hand, there are the more analytical, critical editions of text, the studies on certain aspects of Hittite culture. And those things, while they overlap with the digital space, for example, you might have a digital edition of a text online, but you study the same text in depth, and then you publish a book with a rich introduction to the text and a detailed philological commentary on each line. This deserves to be in a book, I think. And then your book will become outdated after day one or even before it's published. Usually that is the case with books. And corrections can be made in the digital space, and 50 years later someone else will write another book on the same thing, which is again as detailed and analytic as your book. So I think that there's a task for both media, the online space, the digital space, and the printed book. And for any research that goes beyond the presentation and of researchable data in a meaningful way, in a digital way, I think the printed book still has a very important role to play. The printed book, for example, even the copies of new Boazköy fragments, we will still publish in a printed book, which is called KBO 71, and I always get emails, where can I buy KBO 71? This book is a growing digital book, where every year the new fragments are added and available online. And as soon as it's full, it has its, 300 pages, then it will be published still as a book. And then the new growing book will start. So the digital space gives us new opportunities to work in both spaces at the same time. And I don't think that the printed book is a thing of the past.
Thank you. Yes, I was curious. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bir sonraki konuşmacımız Profesör Doktor Gerfried Müller. Ha, sorun mu var? Tamam, buyur. Please have a seat.
You mean in TLHD? No, that is the difference between a text edition and a database of fragments. TLHD is designed as a database, research database of individual cuneiform fragments, which sometimes have been joined. And they will always stay fragmentary, unfortunately, because I would love to find only complete tablets, but unfortunately it's not the case usually. They will always stay fragmentary because it's important for the researchers to see exactly what is preserved on this fragment and nothing else. When you combine these fragments by finding duplicates and then restoring the full text, or by knowing parallels and then you can do a restoration, that is part of a critical text edition. And that is also happening in the digital space. For the prayers and the myths, for example, you have these more complete text editions, which at the same time usually also are published as books. But the two things have two different tasks. So TLHDIC will never aim at providing you with full text editions. It's, so to say, the quarry, the database which people who produce these full text editions can use. So the hard work that you find difficult is the work that Hittitologists have to do. We just give them the material to make it easier. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Evet, sıradaki konuşmacımız Profesör Doktor Gerfried Müller, Würzburg Üniversitesi'nden. Cuneiform Tablet 4D.
Does it or not? Obviously too much. And it's F5?
I think you're on full screen.
Yeah, I hope I do not add to the deterioration in studies of, like it was lamented for Arabic studies this morning, but can add something new. I will try to present a new tool which is disclosed for this conference, especially. This is before I left yesterday. I put it on the site. Here you see for the opening picture of a famous letter, one of the most important documents of the Hurrian language. The king of Tushratta, King Tushratta of Mitanni, to the pharaoh in Egypt. I have just been there with the new Egyptian museum. The great Egyptian museum was opened, and this became the home of all these famous pharaohs who were in touch with our Hittites. So this is the reason why I took one of these texts. Hurrian is one of the languages which was, for the many, many languages who were spoken in Anatolia. So, but why 4D? I want to just reason a bit about what you do with these tablets, how they look like. One thing is the timeline. You know, the way you approach two tablets. We have the different things. I forgot here what colleague Daniel Schwemer already said, and you know from many things, the hand copy. This is one idea to make a drawing of the text, which is, does it tell us? Somehow the text and somehow the handwriting also of the copyist. You have had the idea in the time of publishing cuneiform texts, all ideas like printing, making printing letters, like here in the Harper letters, Neo-Assyrian, or you had digital photography. This triangle piece here is quite a good one. I remember the time when you find in publication so many black and white photographs where you can hardly read anything. It improved with the digital photography beginning of this century. At the beginning, also compared to today, these photographs were not so good. And these things are also by computer scientists who work with OCR and artificial intelligence, often are qualified, especially our black and white photograph, as bad photographs. The problem is, sometimes this is the only source you have of a text. Recently, a colleague showed me text he's publishing from the museum here in Ankara. And he found in an old photograph a line which is now lost. So you must take everything you get. That's our thing. Here, another approach was producing holograms for the things. The important thing is you might have seen or see here, there is no black and white. You have shadows. And when the shadow changes, you will see later what the consequences are. The view of the science changes. All right. My idea was to find a better way of representation. That means make 3D models. Many efforts, and it's a lot of work, and it takes very long. You know this very well. And we produced a viewer where you can, from top here, you can measure, you can change the light, you can turn the objects, you can pan the object, you can zoom in and out, things like that. You can here go back to the original position, take a photograph, and even a photograph with links. So if you want to discuss here down here, oops, what was that? If you go here down to this, you can take a click that is, this is a link you can send to a colleague when you want to discuss a certain part of this tablet. He can immediately open it in this place. So you discuss about the same thing. Okay, other things are like enhancement, which shows you more the depth of the tablet. It looks rather shallow when you have not this enhancement tool. You can, the coloring and many other things you can change. Okay, this is what we had so far. This was the idea when I started with 3D models. But then I came to something which is maybe intellectual, more demanding, things behind it. Paleography is a tool for things like finding joints, if the script looks similar. You can study scribal traditions about the sign forms. You can use it for dating the texts, studies with scribal schools or circles, individual handwriting. That's something which interests me very much. And from that you can then collect dossiers and careers. The tool I showed you before can, for instance, help you to compare layouts. Here, the space between the last line and the separator. Things like that. Okay, I will not go more in depth with this. What we're talking about, we have a lot of science. Just, I calculate for our Hittite text project. This is more than 300,000 words. It's over 1 million cuneiform signs and about 10,000 fragments, smaller or bigger. And here I made a list of the most important signs, which are also important because with these signs you can easier find texts which could belong together, could join. What we first did was an analysis tool, the cuneiform analyzer, who finds all the imprints and measures them, gives all the geometrical data, and it's numbered, and then you can collect here, like here in this, the 835, the red wedge in the middle, and the one in front. You can bring them in order, take these numbers, and then calculate statistics and make dendrograms. You want to see the picture before? I can do a short. Ready? Okay. Then you can do statistics and make such dendrograms where you can take the pieces and order them by similarity. Another view is here a scatter plot where you see that different scribes here in different colors usually are in their own area together. On the right side, one should look at the three-dimensional view because here it's a bit mixed. So it's a multi-dimensional approach, but it's statistical. And the differences between the scribes are often very, very small. Maybe you see on the left side that the Ma sign, which is here on the center, the scribe has a tendency to make a very fat upper horizontal, a bit bigger and a bit upwards. It's a tendency. It's not always like that. And the right one has a more modest, rather downward-oriented one. Yeah? These little differences in sum with different signs allow you to differentiate between scribes. And if you do this by hand, it will never end. With 1 million signs, collecting these numbers is impossible. All right, so what we need is we have to find by machine the signs on photographs and on the 3D objects. And that's what we did. We developed with colleagues from the University of Dortmund artificial intelligence, as you call it today, which is able to find quite a few of our texts. So far, the one I use now in the following has had only 220 different classes that we had at this early stage, which is now published because the colleagues demanded it. It doesn't know all signs, so it can only produce also mistakes because we didn't know all signs. Yeah, please forgive the machine; it's not guilty. So that's you get this kind of comparison of texts, and also the machine gives a clue how probable the result is true. You see here you have a who in the Z list, but the machine itself says it's more half true. Yeah, so usually it should be skipped out. Okay, this is that. And since yesterday you find in the concordance which you have seen before, not only the numbers, the literature on the right side, which is the secondary literature of the text, all the joins, and this in here the drawing, the sketch of the joins, and here the link to the photographs, and this is for the 3D models. But you find also this sign, on which I now click, and then we come to the page on the left side. For this photograph, I take out all, I select all the photographs which are in our list reported as containing this fragment. And then you can click on one of them. Here I clicked on which one? Photograph BOFN 149 alone. And then I get all the signs which were grabbed from this picture. As you see, it's black and white. They are quite good, the old BOFN pictures. We have worse pictures, but still our artificial intelligence tries to find something useful out of it. So, and then if you have a synopsis, that helps you to give, to have one side. This is only made for groups where usually only one shot was taken from one side. We have other groups where you collect many pictures from different angles because people want to study certain difficult passages. I don't make this synopsis because it doesn't make sense. You have many signs double. But here you have a small overlap, and you see how many A signs you find in this text, which is, I think, Alexander Treaty, in the BOFN photographs alone. The thing what my colleagues now use since they discovered it is quickly compare texts, not looking for signs, but first have a look, could it be belong to the same text or not? By just opening two tables, setting the sign, you can scroll it up and down. Of course, I tried to do some more intelligence with these vectors which were used to identify the signs, to group them by scribe. But they are not really fitting with which comes from the materials. If you look here, number 3, 4, 6, and 5 on the right side belong to the same scribe. And if you look on the sign, you see that the Winkelhaken, for instance, is down on the lower part in all these cases, and not in the middle, or rather up, like it 1 and 2. But for some unintelligent reasons, it was, put to the right. The number 5 was put to the right side, and I tried several of these intelligences, even from big companies, and that was not successful yet. But if I take the 3D model, and here I change the colors a bit that you can see better. I can see the edges of the imprint, of the stylus here. This is the blue. I can see in this turquoise color here, we can change the color. That's not so beautiful, I admit. You can see the areas which are under the surface, and the yellow one is the surface. So if you come closer, you can see I did also here the AI which spots the signs on let go over. With this, we will have the 3D data and use them for the classification. And also, you can use them on the two-dimensional level, because now you have a clear differentiation between the different positions in the field. So this is I think this is the future approach. I'm working on that, and I hope this goes quickly. We have so many projects still running, and we had a change in the back end, which made a lot of work, so it's a bit retarded. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for the talk. Sorusu olan var mı? Buyurun.
Okay, no, I used, yes, I think for that, maybe I used only very simple statistics, yeah, maybe. But we will continue on that. Maybe if you want to contribute, you do statistics?
I did use extensive statistics in my thesis.
Yeah, so maybe we can have a talk, maybe find a solution for that. Thank you.
Evet, başka sorusu olan var mı? Soru, yorum. Thank you. You know, there's something I was wondering. So with especially this new tool and the recent things that you have developed to try to find the relation between the signs. I guess this is a significant improvement to what is called in the field for diagnostic science. So now this has become much more systematic thanks to the digital tools. Because before, even in the past, there used to be various tools like tables for these diagnostic things. I'm going to ask a bit of a selfish question, if that's okay, but it's related to Cuneiform. Okay. So basically, I remember we talked, you mentioned that you had studied with Karl-Heinz Deller before this, and he had some significant work on the Assyrian letters about the Cimmerians, and where he wrote various things. And in those letters, one challenge is, because some of them are a bit anonymous or something, the signs, do you think it's possible to use your technique and to try to trace?
I would like to try that one day, yes. Or somebody, the technique when it's solid, so everybody can use it and you don't make many mistakes, then it will be available for everybody. So still, when you are experimenting with it, it's very difficult. But if you have the material, yes, we can, of course, I would be happy to try that. I read these Cimmerian letters at this time. It was in the 80s sometime with Glella, yes. So I remember that.
All right, thank you. This is well. So,
yes. One thing I always also overestimated the possibilities. It's statistics. And if you have scribes who have a very regular writing, it's easier. If people have, like somebody like me, maybe you can sort out because it's very irregular writing, but the people in between are a real problem because if you have only a small text or fragment,
Yes.
the variety is so big that you get into statistical problems by the variation.
Yes, yes.
That could happen, but yes.
Thank you. Evet. O zaman bir sonraki konuşmacımıza geçebiliriz. So we can now move to our next speaker. Evet. Enrique, can you hear us?
Yes.
All
Hello.
right.
Can you hear me?
Profesör Doktor Enrique Jimenez, Ludwig Maximilian Üniversiteit München'den Electronic Babylonian Library Exploring Mesopotamian Literature. Please.
Thank you very much. I'll share my screen if that's. I think you have to approve my request.
Of course, with pleasure.
Very good. So I'll share the screen. Can you see it?
Yes, I think we can see it. Yep. Very good.
Very good. And you can still see it, right?
Yes, I think we're all seeing it. Yep.
Good. So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm sorry that I cannot be there physically, but I've been following the talks with great interest, and I will present very quickly in around 15 minutes the platform that we've been working on for a number of years now, and it's the ABL platform. I would like to begin citing the case of an Assyriologist who few people will know nowadays, Strassmayer, who spent around 20 years copying tablets in the British Museum from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And he must have copied half of the collection, according to the saying of Wallis Budge. And so he was a Jesuit priest who spent 20 years of his life in London trying to copy tablets. And he produced thousands of copies. Let me see. That look like this. That look like this, sorry. Yeah. And we digitized the copies and so on. And why did he copy so many tablets? Well, he was convinced that it was a waste of time to compile an Assyrian dictionary or to write a history of the Sumerian and Babylonian civilizations, while so many tens of thousands of tablets in the British Museum and elsewhere remained unpublished. So there was a very serious problem in the times of Strassmayer, but it is still a very serious problem today. We calculate around 50% of the tablets in all museums are still unpublished, and these are tablets that were excavated around at least 100 years ago, if not even earlier. To sort of try to tackle this problem, we developed the Electronic Babylonian Library platform, which we developed originally with a project that started in 2018, and we've been developing now, expanding in the course of other projects. These are some of the team members. I will go into this, and this is the infrastructure of the platform, but which you can find in our GitHub page. All the code that we publish is open source, so you can actually install the platform locally and run locally. We have many tools in the platform. I won't go into them, but you can find a sign list, a dictionary, and several other tools. It's sort of a Swiss knife for Assyriology and for cuneiform studies. And I will discuss in particular two today, the library and the science. I won't talk about the corpus, but I will show you here how the edition of Gilgamesh that you can find on the platform is, and we keep this edition constantly updated with new fragments, and every new reading, every new article that is published discussing one aspect or another, we incorporate it so that anyone can find here everything that we know about Gilgamesh. So in the library, we have editions such as this. Many of them are of tablets that you can find otherwise, so we publish them. So most of them are actually tablets that we edited in the platform, so this is the first edition of the tablets. We developed a way of transliterating cuneiform that has no learning curve whatsoever, so anyone can type up cuneiform and save it, and we have a large number of users who are typing in tablets or editions of tablets every day. You can see that currently we have around 33,000 tablets edited, so around 500,000 lines of text. We have photo projects, large photo projects in the British Museum and in other museums in the world. Here you can see the one in the British Museum. We started, so as soon as we received the photos, we edit them. Here you can see a collection that was registered only last year. We already have it transliterated in our platform. Over the past 6 years, we digitized around 20,000 tablets, so we photographed them. And in the course of the next 5 years, we're going to photograph the second of another large collection in the British Museum consisting of, again, 35,000 tablets. So it looks like it will be possible to digitize the complete collection of the British Museum by 2030. And this is great. It is the largest collection of cuneiform tablets in the world. We have also started 2 years ago to catalog and digitize the collections of previously unnumbered fragments, and so far we have digitized around 5,600 fragments, and there's currently someone at the British Museum digitizing more. It's unclear how many thousands of fragments there are. We calculated there may be between 10 and 15,000 previously unnumbered fragments, and these are becoming available for the first time now since they were excavated in the 19th century. We also have photo projects in other collections, such as the Hilprecht collection in Jena, and also in the Iraq Museum, where we have photographed around 1,000 tablets. And in total, we have around 95,000 photographs in our database. Around half of them, more or less, have been produced in the course of these projects. The goal of the platform originally was to allow you to reconstruct texts. So most texts that we have are fragmentary, and the way that you can fill those fragments is by finding so-called duplicates. So you will find a fragment of a text, and then you will find another fragment of another manuscript of the same text that overlaps with it, and thanks to this other fragment, you will find another fragment of the first text. Yeah. So you will have 3 fragments that belong to 2 different manuscripts. Yeah. So this is the way that texts have been traditionally reconstructed, and is definitely the safest, so to say, and the most productive one, because texts are usually preserved in more than one manuscript, at least non-administrative texts. The matching is never quite as clean as you see in that image. In the case of these fragments that duplicate each other, they only have one sign in common. So there was a serious problem, and for that we developed a solution. With the search engine that we have, we were extremely successful. We made around 1,500 joins in the course of 5 years, and you can see that they look different. This is because they are made with Photoshop. All these are put here with Photoshop, and we send lists of them regularly to the museum, and they check them, but they have a large backlog at the moment, of course. So we developed an algorithm to match texts, and we tried different approaches, and some of them are algorithms that are very well known in bioinformatics already since the 1980s. We found that the best approach was to use n-grams, which is a very basic approach, but worked very well. You can see that the accuracy, the top 3 accuracy was around 95%. That means that if you have a fragment, the algorithm is able to align it with the text in 95% of the chances of the cases. In order to train the algorithm, we created artificial fragments such as this, and of these artificial fragments, we created these subsequent frequency distributions, so-called n-grams, and that way we create a sort of a fingerprint of the fragment, and with that you can match it with other texts. We published an article on this matcher, and there's also a GitHub repo that you can clone and run it locally to find more matches for your fragment. And this is the results that you get, and it tells you the score and then the overlap size, and they are both metrics that are important. Using this algorithm, we could find, for instance, this fragment of the latest known manuscript of Gilgamesh from the year 120, and this was missed by humans because it has some very strange spellings because it's so late, but the algorithm found it without any problem. I'll speak for a couple of minutes about what we have been doing in the field of OCR. So a few years ago, we started a program to tag tablets. So we have editions here, and we have the photo here. So students go through the photos, create these bounding boxes, and then match them with the text. We started that, as I said, a few years ago, and in the last couple of years, we have matched it with or paired with the teaching schedule, so that we have classes on different periods of cuneiform, and that we have correspondingly also photos from different periods of cuneiform. So currently, our data set of cuneiform science, of snippets of cuneiform science is like this. We have around 130,000 cuneiform signs. We published then the data set last year, and we are about to publish another paper with this data set and the distribution and so on. So the signs that we have annotated, you can find them in our science section. So if you want to see how a particular sign looks in a particular period, you can just go there and see it. This is, of course, a very pedestrian use of the tag signs. We are also using it for other things. The last time that anyone tried to compile a comprehensive list of cuneiform signs was Fossi in this book published almost 100 years ago. There's nothing to replace it, and consequently, it's very difficult to date cuneiform tablets. I will go back to that in a second. So we published this paper last year on detection, sign detection for cuneiform tablets. The accuracy that we reached in the paper was rather underwhelming, around 38% of accuracy. We retrained the algorithm with much more data, and currently we reach an accuracy of 45%. It's a very difficult problem to detect the sign and recognize it at the same time. In any case, with this accuracy, in periods that are particularly well represented in the data set, the accuracy is very high. So in this case, you can see these Neo-Babylonian tablets, the model can recognize 85% of the signs accurately. So that's basically like any cuneiformist will do without having to think too much about it. We ran the OCR model on our entire data set of photos and published the results offline. You can see here 1 million signs that have been extracted. This is how the data looks like. This was the model. We are just retraining it, and this is how it looks like at the moment. And I apologize for the very low resolution of the photo. But what we have done just last week is to combine the OCR model with the matcher, with the fragment matcher. And in order to match the results of the OCR with the known transliterations, and that way we can fine-tune the parameters. And we can see that the accuracy is very similar to the one that we obtain with purely computer vision methods. So we obtain around 40% accuracy. The goal that we have is, of course, to be able to photograph the fragments, run the OCR model and the n-gram matcher, and then be able to match them with text. This is what we're about to do, and we'll see how the results are. Another goal that we have, and I will be very, very brief, 1-2 minutes, is to date tablets. It's extremely difficult to date cuneiform tablets. You can see in this tablet, this is a fragment of a Tranhasis, and it's been dated as Old Babylonian, Middle Babylonian, or Late Babylonian. There is over 1,000 years of difference between the earliest and the latest datation. The truth is that the last manual that we have is, as I said, Fossi, and there is nothing more recent. In our database, you can see instances of signs from different periods, and it's clear that signs evolve all the time. In this case, you can see that this component of the sign sort of gets integrated into the sign and then goes to the right of the sign over time. Yeah? This is from the 6th century, this is for the 1st century BC. So what we are trying to do is to train the computer to detect these differences. Last year, we published this paper trying to train a computer to distinguish between Babylonian and Assyrian script, which is similar in many respects, but different in also very many signs. And the accuracies that we reached were also very high, around 90% top 3 accuracy. The mistakes that the program makes are also very understandable, but we are planning to expand this model to be able to classify science not only as Assyrian or Babylonian, but also according to century, or to produce educated guests. So to finish, I would like to go back to Strassmayer, who said that it was a waste to write a dictionary or to a history of Sumerian or Babylonian, while so many tens of thousands of tablets in the British Museum and elsewhere are unpublished. This is still the case. It's not pointless to write a dictionary, but there is still the case that there are thousands of tablets in the British Museum and elsewhere that are unpublished. But I'm convinced that our generation is the first one that can really tackle this problem in a satisfactory manner. With that, I will finish. Thank you very much for your attention. Yeah, I'll stop the sharing.
Thank you. Now we have time for some questions. Would you have any questions? Now we'll ask the questions in English, or I can translate. Gerekirse çevirebilirim. Hani şey olarak da. Buyurun. Buyurun.
Thank you. It's a very good question. In some cases, it is the same mistakes that humans will do. But in the case, in the OCR model, we are using a purely visual model. So the model is just looking at the photo, not trying to understand the text. Yeah. So the mistakes that it makes are sometimes very bizarre. And when you look at it, you can understand why the mistake happens. But you wouldn't have made that mistake because you don't only look at the photo, you also try to reconstruct the text in your head. Right? So what we are planning to do also next year is to use multimodal models, right? Like clip and so on, to look at the same time at photo and text. This is something that we haven't done yet, and it will be very interesting to see what the mistakes are then. I would imagine there will be many more hallucinations, but we haven't started to do it yet. Sorry, I didn't hear the question quite. It was about Gilgamesh and.
I will let me rephrase it. So when you do the joints, first of all, what tools do you do, and how do you know they connect where they connect?
Yeah, very good. So there are two different sort of phases. First of all, is detecting the overlap. And detecting the overlap, it's mostly done on different manuscripts, so not on two pieces of the same manuscript, right? As I was explaining. So for that, we have this matcher that is on GitHub, so you can download it and run it locally, and that's how you detect the match. It's always a probability. It's never going to tell you 100% certain this is an overlap, but once you run the program, it's pretty much clear which overlaps are true and which ones are not. For the join itself, if you detect two pieces of the same manuscript and you suspect that they go together, so what we do is very basic. We simply create a Photoshop montage of the two pieces. The final test is done in the museum because the tablets are 3D objects, right? So they have more than just the offers. They also have a lot of core, a lot of clay preserved, and you have to check in the museum whether the two pieces go together or not. And that is done by curators in the British Museum and in other museums.
Any other questions? Enrique, can I ask you a student-centered question? Let's say, so we're, to learn Akkadian and all these things. And we understand that because now the digital tools are becoming quite significant, is it true to say that the student must also start learning certain digital applications at the very beginning so that they can be efficient in the future? And if so, what
Well,
are
it's-
the top tools you would recommend?
Well, it's having some basic computer literacy. It never hurts in any aspect of life, not only in archaeology. Learning some basic Python is very helpful, and even if large language models can now write code, you will always have to debug it, and in order to debug it, you will need to understand how it works, and yeah. So that's I will strongly recommend having some basic computer literacy, even if you just want to do archaeology. Yeah, I heard once an archaeologist say that Python is the most useful tool that he's ever learned for doing archaeology. So.
Yes. Thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. And again, I'm very sorry I couldn't be there in person.
it. Next time hopefully. Thank you. O zaman alkışlayalım son bir. Bir ara verelim, sonra dijital arkeolojiye devam.